You know, when you look at the history of World War II, it's just filled with stories of unbelievable bravery. But every once in a while, you find one that just seems impossible. This is one of those stories. It's about a single soldier who, with everything to lose, completely turned the tide of a battle that was, for all intents and purposes, already over. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's March 5th, 1945. We're deep in the jungles of Burma. And for a small section of Gurkha soldiers, their entire world has just shrunk down to the tiny bit of ground they're hiding behind. Because, as the official military report puts it, there's a sniper up in the trees, and he is picking them off one by one. The threat isn't just out there somewhere. It's immediate, it's precise, and it is absolutely deadly. Now, this little firefight, it's actually part of a much bigger push. The 25th Indian Division is on the move, part of this huge Allied campaign against the Japanese 54th Division. And their job, right here, right now, is to retake this key hill they've codenamed Snowdon East. The problem is, the Gurkhas had just been kicked off that hill after a really vicious enemy attack. So, for the guys in the 3rd Battalion of the 2nd Gurkha Rifles, the situation is, frankly, a total disaster. They are completely bogged down. I mean, they're out in the open, taking fire from mortars, machine guns, and, of course, that one sniper hidden somewhere in all that green. They can't go forward, they can't really move at all, and they're losing men. They are well and truly trapped. And right in the middle of all of this chaos is a soldier, a rifleman named Bhanbhagta Gurung. But hold on. Before we see what he does next, we really need to understand who this guy was. Because believe me, his personal story makes what's about to happen even more incredible. So Gurung was from the legendary Gurkha district in Nepal, and he joined the famous 2nd Gurkha Rifles when he was just 18. And by 1945, this guy was no rookie. He was a hardened veteran. He had already survived the Chindit expedition back in '43, which was one of the most brutal, behind enemy lines operations of the entire war. So yeah, he knew his way around combat, and he definitely knew the jungle. But, and this is a huge but, there was a complication. Right before this battle, Gurung had been stripped of his rank. He was a naik, which is like a corporal, and they demoted him. The official reason? Neglect of duty, for supposedly taking the wrong hill. The crazy thing is, he had actually followed his platoon commander's orders perfectly. So as he's sitting there, pinned down by enemy fire, he's not just another soldier. He's a man who has been wronged, and he has absolutely everything to prove. Okay, one more quick pause before we get back to the action. We need to talk about the Victoria Cross. This isn't just some medal you get for showing up. This is the highest honor for bravery you can possibly get. It's reserved for acts of courage that are just almost beyond human comprehension. It's the absolute pinnacle, the standard by which all other acts of bravery are judged. All right, back to the battle. His section is getting torn to pieces. And Gurung, he just makes a decision. He doesn't wait for orders. He just decides he's going to handle it himself. What happens next is a series of actions so incredibly brave, it almost sounds like something out of a comic book. So first, that sniper. Gurung just stands up, completely exposed to all the incoming fire, takes calm aim, and shoots the sniper right out of the tree. Then, without even hesitating, he charges forward, all by himself. He takes out the first foxhole with grenades. The next 3, he clears them with his bayonet. A machine gun opens up on him from a bunker, point-blank range. Does he stop? Nope. He keeps going. He jumps on top of the bunker roof and drops his last 2 smoke grenades inside. 2 Japanese soldiers come stumbling out, blinded by the smoke, and he cuts them down with his kukri knife. And then, he crawls into the bunker to face whoever is left. Think about this. He's inside this dark, smoke-filled bunker. He's got no ammo left, his grenades are gone, and there's one more enemy soldier in there with him. So what does he do? In this just unbelievable act of brutal determination, he picks up a rock. And he kills the last soldier with a rock. And hey, don't just take my word for how important this was. The official citation for his Victoria Cross says it all. It reads that his actions were decisive in capturing the objective. In other words, he by himself broke the stalemate and won the battle that had his entire company pinned down. So, after clearing that bunker, you'd think he'd maybe take a 5-minute break, right? No way. The first thing he does is grab a Bren gunner and 2 riflemen, gets them into the position he just captured, and starts organizing the defense against the Japanese counterattack that he knew was coming. And because of him, they held the line. The battle was won. What he did on that single day secured a massive victory, so much so that his regiment got a special battle honor called Tamandu. And for Bhanbhagta Gurung, well, that unbelievable act of bravery took him from the jungles of Burma all the way to London, to Buckingham Palace, where he received the Victoria Cross from King George VI himself. But what happens to a person after they've done something like that, after they've committed such incredible acts of violence in the line of duty? Gurung's story, it doesn't just end there on the battlefield. The choices he made after the war, well, they tell you just as much about the kind of man he was. His commanding officer literally begged him to stay in the army. I mean, think about it. A Victoria Cross winner, he could have written his own ticket. But Gurung made a different call. In 1946, he left the service. He went home to his tiny village in Nepal to take care of his family. The warrior decided his duty was now to be a son, a husband, and a father. He was given the honorary rank of Havildar, which is like a sergeant, and he was also awarded the Star of Nepal. And his legacy lives on today. There's a training building in the UK named after him. He passed away back in 2008 at the age of 86, and if you ever want to see it, his actual Victoria Cross is on display at the Gurkha Museum in England. And maybe the most powerful part of his legacy, it's the one he passed directly to his family. All three of his sons, they all followed him into his old regiment, the 2nd Gurkha Rifles, an incredible tradition of service and courage passed from one generation to the next. You know, the story of Bhanbhagta Gurung really leaves you with this one big question. Here's a guy who starts his day being demoted, gets pinned down by overwhelming enemy fire, and then proceeds to do things that just seem physically and mentally impossible. It really makes you wonder, what is the actual limit of human courage?